Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The words that were spoken we later learned from men who were there. A man who first burst into my court with a knapsack and a limping mule now raises up his heel, trying to seize the throne for himself. King Henry II raged. 4 of the king's barons, so one contemporary biographical manuscript records, rode out to punish the rebellious priest. Hugh MacClerk, the most wicked of all men, approaching him as he lay, put his foot on his neck, thrusting the point of his sword into his head, spread out his brains on the pavement, crying out and saying, "Let us go, the traitor is dead." Like that very infamous murder of the priest Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral 8.5 centuries ago, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is writing a story of the killing of pro-Khalistan preacher Hardeep Singh Nijjar as a morality play, where he's defending high liberal principle against a barbarous tyranny. Trudeau's government has assigned the role of the murderous Henry II to Home Minister Amit Shah. Intelligence officers working under withdrawn High Commissioner Sanjay Verma play the court and the assassins. The executioners are members of the Lawrence Bishnoi crime cartel, all of whom work under the protection of the Government of India. Little actual evidence for this story has so far been made public. Moreover, the trial of 4 Indian nationals charged with the killing has been adjourned 5 times. Prosecution hands over tens of thousands of pages of evidence to lawyers for the men. This evidence might prove or not that India's intelligence services did execute Nijjar. The real story underlying all this, though, is more complex than either country admits. For years, the Trudeau government has been extraordinarily permissive of public calls to violence by pro-Khalistan groups. All this while posting Islamic State propaganda to TikTok has earned people 6-year prison sentences. Little action has been taken against Khalistan fundraising used to pay hitmen to conduct murders in India. For a skeptical audience, Justin Trudeau's morality play will be hard to distinguish from low farce. Even though international law generally opposes assassinations, great powers, including the United States, have routinely used them since 9/11 against terrorists sheltered in safe havens. India is learning that lesser nations, though, must pay a price for invoking the same principles that govern the great. Taken at the well-known arms bazaar in Pakistan's Darra at Adam Khail in 1989, the photograph hanging over the dining hall in the Guru Nanak Gurdwara shows Talvinder Singh Parmar cradling a machine gun. Talvinder, the architect of the bombing of Air India Flight 182 in 1985 and multiple other attacks, was killed by the Punjab police in 1992 near Philor. The photograph was only installed in 2019 when Nijjar won elections to take charge of the Gurdwara in the town of Surrey in British Columbia. This was part of a wider resurgence of pro-Khalistan forces in the Sikh community in Canada. "We will have to take up arms," Nijjar told the congregation in a videotaped speech obtained by the journalists Nancy MacDonald and Greg Mercer. "We will have to dance to the edges of swords." Those who advocated peaceful methods, the Khalistan operative went on, needed to be left behind. What justice will we get this way? Even though Nijjar had no intention of returning to India himself for this armed struggle, after all, the 18 million in assets the Gurdwara controls helped the one-time plumber acquire a second and a third home in Surrey, MacDonald and Mercer reported. But his name appeared in at least a dozen cases involving bombings and the attempted assassination of heterodox Sikhs and Hindu nationalists in Punjab. Likely, political patronage helped many pro-Khalistan activists like Nijjar embed themselves in Canada. Nijjar had arrived in Canada on a counterfeit passport and was initially denied asylum. A second effort involving a fake marriage again ended in rejection. Even though authorities recorded he did not face any persecution at home, he was granted citizenship in 2007. The actual evidence assembled by the Punjab police in the cases against Nijjar, though, was also anemic. 3 men accused of bombing a cinema in Ludhiana on Nijjar's orders were acquitted in the courts, while a fourth died during trial. Canada too, however, made very little effort to seriously investigate ties between pro-Khalistan groups and the criminals they hired in India to carry out acts of violence. This was true to a long-standing pattern. Tarsen Singh Purewal and Tara Singh Hare, both witnesses to the Air India case, were shot dead. There have still been no arrests. Even after the Air India bombing, pro-Khalistan figures such as Balbir Singh, Darshan Singh, Kulvinder Singh remained active in the Babbar Khalsa's hierarchy, apparently without inviting the attention of the highly rated and professional Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The assassination of prominent communist leader Balwinder Singh Sandhu, who is famous for engaging in armed combat with Khalistan terrorists in the 1990s, was one of several cases involving links to Canada. Although Canadian authorities responded that there was no hard evidence linking figures like Nijjar to violence, there's plenty to suggest they weren't looking very hard. Little Guantanamo, it was called. Long rows of single cells stretching across the maximum security prison at Terre Haute in Indiana, with the prisoners under constant surveillance. Khalid Awan's journey to that prison began in the weeks after 9/11, a haze of toxic dust still covering lower Manhattan, after the Federal Bureau of Investigations received a call about suspicious Middle Eastern men operating out of an apartment in New York. It soon turned out there were no Middle Eastern men, just a group of Pakistani migrants engaged not in terrorism but in credit card fraud. 4 years later, while he was serving time for this crime, Awan bragged to a Sikh prisoner, Hardeep Singh, that he had transferred tens of thousands of dollars from that fraud to Khalistan Commando Force terrorist Paramjit Singh Panjwad on the instructions of the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate. From prison, Awan even called Panjwad, showing off his close personal ties with the terrorists. Later on, Awan told FBI investigator John Ross he knew the money, and I quote, was going to be used for bad things like shooting and killing of innocent people. Harjeet Singh, the cellmate, also testified that Awan had talked to him about taking him to Pakistan following their release to meet Panjwad and undergo training on how to use guns and make bombs. Awan was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Then he returned to his homeland, not Pakistan, Canada. There was no serious effort to follow up on the Awan case either in the United States or Canada. 9/11 mattered. Khalistan just didn't. Ever since 9/11, the legal philosopher Michael Davis notes, nation states have employed assassination, which are illegal in international law except in very special circumscribed circumstances, with growing frequency. The killing of the completely unarmed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad would by most standards of international law have constituted murder. The practice of targeted killing drew on Israeli reasoning, employed since 1973, which stressed that there was no other means to punish terrorists who were sheltered behind the walls of hostile nation states. The legal scholar Kirsten Eichenzer warned, however, that the increased use of targeted killing by the US would have an inevitable consequence. Having opened Pandora's box, she wrote, and begun down the slippery slope of targeted killings, the United States cannot hope to control other parties' employment of the policy. Even today, as it prosecutes alleged research and analysis wing funded assassin Nikhil Gupta, who is charged with the attempted murder of Nijjar's friend and associate Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, the United States seems relatively sensitive to the complexity of the issue. The country has not allowed the assassination attempt to take the wider strategic relationship, nor sought to claim high moral ground. Faced with clear and present threats, the United States has acted much like India, after all, flailing politically because of economic mismanagement, facing rebellion within his party, and allegations that he failed to confront Chinese interference in domestic politics. Prime Minister Trudeau's circumstances is different. His government has instead unleashed a polemical war, with Trudeau and his ministers trying to gain support from ethnic Punjabi voters who are vital in some key constituencies. This is a low-risk strategy for Trudeau, given the minimum strategic equities Canada has in India, or for that matter, India and Canada. There are, of course, tough questions that need asking. A long succession of alleged intelligence operations outside the near neighborhood, among them the case of Kulbhushan Jadhav, the botched attempt to kidnap fugitive businessman Mehul Choksi, and of course the anti-Khalistan assassinations in North America, have ended in exposure and embarrassment. This casts serious doubt on the competence and capability of India's intelligence services. Even more important, the failure to build persuasive legal cases against suspects which can ensure their extradition has undermined India. Following 9/11, there was genuine opportunity to build transnational consensus against terrorism and its use by nation states as a tool of foreign policy. The Nijjar case is the outcome of the loss of that opportunity because of opportunism, political venality, and moral double standards. I'm Praveen Swami and I'm a contributing editor to ThePrint. Thank you for watching this episode of Security Code.